Eve and I were very good friends. Note the were. She was a strange girl. Barely had any friends when I first met her in high school. I had started in grade 8 rather than grade 7, so nearly everyone in my grade at that point had formed their own cliques. I found myself being classified under the lazy stoners. I had talked to Eve once through Facebook. She was not a happy girl. I had just met her and she was spilling all of her secrets about self-loathing, self-harming, suicidal thoughts, and the like. I felt bad for her. My heart ached since I sympathized with what she was dealing with. We became friends, started hanging out at school and outside. After a while, Eve changed. It was more of an eerie change than anything. She started growing possessive of me, saying I couldn't hang around other people. She told me she loved me and couldn't live without me. At the time, there were no red flags going off in my head. She was my friend who had lived a not-so-easy life thus far, and was just happy to finally have someone there for her. It got out of control when she gave me the silent treatment for a week after I got a boyfriend. "But he's not even good for you," she'd say after her silence. "He doesn't treat you right." Which was wrong. He treated me like a princess and spoiled me silly and reminded me of my beauty inside and out. It's not going to last. I just know it. She was right. The relationship lasted all of 1 month and 3 days because Eve decided she had something to say to him. To this day, I still don't know what she said that possessed him to leave. We were happy. Or so I thought. Somewhere along the timeline of our friendship, my dad died of a heart attack. She was very supportive, and I will be forever grateful for her support and love during that time. Something broke inside of her, I think, seeing me like that. She had started taking copious amounts of drugs and became distant. 2 months later, she moved to a different province with my mother. She had been raped. We still spoke occasionally, and she seemed to be doing well enough, but the paranoia of her rapist coming to find her spooked her. I stayed up countless nights talking to her on the phone about everything. It hurt to hear some of these things. Once, she told me that after she had gotten raped, she told her mother what happened, and her mom yelled at her, saying it was her fault for being raped, and she bets she enjoyed it anyway. I've met Eve's mother before, and she is one of the sweetest moms I have ever met. Plus, she's a great cook. I could not see her say something so cruel to her only daughter. I withdrew after that, not sure what to make of the whole ordeal. But one night, man, this is where I just could not be her friend anymore. One night, I got a Facebook message from her. It started off normal enough. We were talking about our days. Then it took a turn. She started telling me how much she loved me, and not just as a friend. She said how the thought of anyone touching her body again made her feel sick, but she loved the feel of my hands on her, things like that. I had never once seen Eve under that light. Pretty much all of my friends know that I'm bisexual, but Eve never gave me the slightest hint towards her sexuality, so I had just assumed she was straight, up until that point. She never talked about anyone romantically or sexually, now that I think about it. My replies became less frequent and more hostile the longer the conversations went on. Something was off. I'm not sure how to explain it, but something just did not feel right about this situation. My gut was right. She started talking about getting raped again by her original abuser, and then taking the rape kit at the hospital. I was not for this plan. She said she had found someone willing to help her. His name was Alex. Right off the bat, I hated Alex. He wanted sexual favors in return for helping her. I told her my distaste for this plan and how I was willing to help in any way I possibly could, as long as the plan didn't involve getting her hurt again. At this point, it just seemed ridiculous to me, so I started texting her cell phone. No answer. After a while, Eve said she was going to go see Alex that night, and instead, he was going to help her kill herself. I started panicking. I don't remember all that happened that night. My mind was racing and my adrenaline was pumping like crazy. All I knew was that I had to save Eve. I started spam calling and texting Eve's phone, but I got her voicemail. I checked to see if she was still logged into Facebook. She wasn't. I called and called and called. 20 or so minutes later, I received a call from an unknown number. I did a reverse lookup of the number and found out it was from the same place Eve was living at the time. It said something along the lines of, "If you keep calling her, you're just gonna make it worse for her." I asked, "Who the fuck is this?" To which I got the laughing emoji and a detailed text about tying my friend up, drugging her, and using her like the little horse she was. The text involved details about the things whoever on the other line wanted to do to her. I won't say everything, but there was something he had mentioned about a curling iron. I freaked out. I instantly looked up her area's police number and immediately dialed after reading the text. I was crying when the operator answered. Bless her heart. She was remaining calm and wasn't pushing me for too many details at once. I explained the situation to her, my suicidal friend, the rape, her guy friend, the Facebook messages, and finally the text. She asked me where my friend lived, which I didn't know. I gave her my friend's cell phone number instead. They found her location and asked me for my number so as to call me back. Between all of the stress, adrenaline, and fear, I accidentally gave them my old phone number, so they never called me back. I did get a text message from Eve's phone, though, about 30 minutes later. Eve. Why did you call the fucking cops on me? The whole house was sleeping when they got here. I was so confused, but the unknown number knew I had been texting and calling her cell phone. How could they have known if she had had her phone with her? Absolutely nothing added up. I cried all night. I had nightmares about what the unknown number had said to me. Every night I'd imagine myself being tortured and used by a masked man. That night I had called my best friend, who also lived in another province. I told him everything that had happened in between sobs. He comforted me and confirmed that I wasn't going crazy and that I hadn't just made the whole thing up. I made sure to screenshot everything and send it to him. He agreed that nothing added up about what she said the whole conversation, and even after that as well. It's been nearly a year since this occurred. I feel bad, and judge me all you want, but I blocked her number after that. I blocked all 3 of her Facebook accounts. Blocked everything I could. Every couple of months or so, I'll get a call from an unknown number. I never answer it. The voicemail consists of her telling me how much she loves me. Creepy part is, I've changed my phone twice, and the number since the incident. Just last week I got a message request on Facebook from a profile bearing her name. It explained how she will never forget me. I left a mark on her. A mark that was never going away. More rambling about her overflowing love for me. I just need to see your face. Please. You're so special to me. It ended with her telling me she was back. I blocked that new account too. I'm so sorry, Eve, but please, let's not meet again. I posted here a few days ago, and now it's having a snowball effect on me, because I have thought of a few other creepy things that has happened to me. Now, this one in particular, I had to ask my mom to help with, because I was so young when it happened. I remember only bits and pieces. This happened when I was between the ages of 6 to 10, and involves my uncle. Also, I'm adopted. This comes up later, promise. This is what I remember. My uncle used to come around for holidays and family gatherings, but then he stopped coming all at once. I remember him being friendly with me and never did me any harm. If anything, he would pay special attention to me and get me the best gifts. There were a few occurrences I remember where I overheard him and my mom and dad fighting, and my uncle leaving upset. Other than that, he was a good uncle to me. Then when I started high school, I grew curious as to why I no longer saw the uncle that once gave me amazing gifts. So I asked my mom about it over dinner. I remember that I tried to be casual about it. She tried to bullshit with me and lay it on lightly, saying he takes lots of vacations and is busy with his work, blah blah blah. I know my mom well, and I especially know when she's keeping something from me. So I told her that it's okay, that I can handle the truth. Where my mom had to refresh my memory. My mom's story was much different than my previous memories of my uncle. My mom said my uncle took me into the bathroom with him when I was 6. It was my birthday. My mom couldn't find me. She walked into the bathroom to my uncle with his pants down and me sitting on the closed toilet lid. She left it at that. And that she and my dad kicked him out that day, that moment, and pretty much banned him from family gatherings. Ever since then, he would show up unexpectedly, hence the fights. And on holidays, he would sit outside in his car, wait until someone wasn't looking, and quickly leave me gifts and notes attached, detailing explicit things. They eventually put a restraining order on him with enough evidence gathered. When I was 10, was my 10th birthday, my uncle showed up, drunk, gifts in hand. My mom said they hid me in the downstairs bedroom with my older cousin. There was an heiress if it came to it, and my dad called the police. They took him away and he got put in jail for violating the restraining order put against him by my parents. And one thing that chills me is my mom actually showed me a note he had left for me. It was kept for evidence regarding the restraining order, where it basically states that because I am non-blood related, he sees no harm in his actions, and that he intends to continue our family's bloodline through me. And keep in mind, when he left that specific note for me, my mom said I was 8. Fucking 8 years old. I am much older now, and haven't seen my uncle or haven't heard from him since. I know he is out of jail, most definitely, and I know that he is alive. My parents would get notified if he passed. I just hope he has given up on me, and what creeps me out is that so much time has passed. He might look totally different, and he might not have let this thing with me settle. Because of him and what my mom told me, I'm really into self-defense and taking extreme measures when it comes to my safety. So, Uncle, if you're coming for me, I dare you. I can take you. This happened when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I lived in a fairly quiet suburban town in Australia. Crime rate was almost non-existent, so parents were pretty laid back about letting their kids play in the streets without supervision from time to time. While this was great for us, the kids, for other more sinister people, this was something that could easily be taken advantage of. One weekend, I convinced my parents to let me go home after school with a friend to stay over one Friday night. I regularly went to this person's house, and I knew their parents quite well. Since they trusted me, it wasn't a problem letting us both play with other kids on the street past 9 p.m. My friend's house was located at the back of a cul-de-sac, or dead-end street. The kids from the neighboring houses would regularly congregate at the end of the street at night to hang out. So tonight, we decided to join them. It was a regular thing we did when I was over. This night, since it was a weekend, there were a lot of us, maybe 6 or 7, and we decided to play 44 home, which is pretty much a game of tips with the end goal of getting to a designated area before you are tipped in order to be safe for that round. Well, shortly before starting the game, we were all deciding on where the safe zone should be. So as we started looking around for a suitable spot, my friend nudged me and told me to look down the end of the street. He had a puzzled look on his face, like he was seeing something unfamiliar. He asked me if I thought that tree at the end of the street kind of looked like a person. There was a substantial patch of bushland at the area he was pointing to, so it took me a while, but eventually I saw the tree stump he was pointing at. And yeah, he was right. It did look faintly like the silhouette of a person, but nothing to be alarmed about. It did look a lot more like a tree stump than a person, so we continued playing our game. We were playing the game for about 20 minutes before some of the girls from the group complained that they were tired and wanted to sit down for a while, so we decided to have a break. As we were sitting on someone's lawn, I looked over at the stump. Weird. It looked a little bigger than before. With my bewildered look, the group asked me what I was looking at. Me and my friend both pointed at the stump and asked if anyone thought that it looked like a person. The girls in the group immediately thought we were trying to scare them. They were about a year or so younger than us, so scared easily. This led to a jumbled debate on whether the stump was a person or not. The majority had their doubts, and one of the boys said they would walk up to the stump to prove once and for all that it is in fact a stump. Like a herd of penguins, we shuffled about 20 or so meters behind him as he approached the stump. When we got about 2/3 down the street, the boy ahead of us froze. One of the girls yelled out asking why he had stopped. Silence. The kid then took one very slow step back. It was at that moment we turned our attention to the stump. My heart skipped a beat when I clearly saw the stump take a step toward us. From out of the trees, it was clearly not a tree stump. It was a man. No wonder we couldn't see him. He was wearing a black coat, black pants, and black shoes. We all froze in complete and utter fear. My heart was racing. It felt like a scene from a horror movie. He took another step closer, and we could see the outline of his face from the streetlight. His blank expression turned into a sinister smile, like he was about to pull off a heist. Finally, the boy in front of us kicked into gear and yelled for everyone to run. Startled, we did the same. Understandably, we were all screaming for our lives. The girls' screams could have shattered windows as it made almost everyone come out of their houses. Luckily, once we were halfway up the street, a father of one of the kids came out to tell us we were being too loud. We swarmed to him, huffing and puffing, trying to form a coherent sentence on what had just transpired. We looked for the man chasing us, but he was nowhere to be seen. Not a single indicator that he had even existed. Once we finally got the story out, we were all told to go back to our homes and go to bed. Whenever we tried bringing up the story, we were just shrugged off and told it was probably just someone walking their dog or some other excuse. I suppose since we were so young, it highly factored into our credibility. And yes, blah blah, kids have imaginations. But in all honesty, I know what I saw, and it was completely compatible with everyone else's stories. The group stopped hanging out after that. So, crazy guy that looked like a tree? Let's not meet. I work at a small coffee shop where I often close alone, with maybe 1 or 2 customers at the end of the night. There is a man who will come in with his older wife. They are both about 60, and sit on their computers all day using the Wi-Fi, not talking to each other. I love the internet too, but damn. They buy a 1.1-day-old donut and then just sit. The guy is short and white and stocky and has long hair and little granny glasses. I'm 5'11", so I tower over him and always thought he was weird, but never gave him much thought. Felt scared until the other night. I was closing and it was just him and me. His wife wasn't there. Often they get into fights and she leaves crying after he yells at her. He's a real keeper. So I didn't think much about it. He came up to me at the end of the night and got a coffee to go. I asked his name for the cup out of habit, and he said, "Put master on it." Immediately I felt myself turn bright red and get uncomfortable and said, "No." He laughed. I just turned around and made his drink and put it on the bar. I could feel him looking at me the whole time, but try not to seem nervous. He said, "Do you know what I do?" I shook my head no. He told me he runs a brothel called Secret Garden that specializes in extreme BDSM. We live in Washington State. Hello. Brothels are not legal. And that he likes seeing women with fat wallets. He said he thought I'd be really successful as a sub, even though I'm so tall. He said he'd love to chain me and show me the lifestyle, and that I'd love it. I, again, felt myself get bright red and start to shake because it didn't feel normal. I get a lot of weirdos because of Seattle's huge tweaker population, and I get a lot of gang members, but I want to make it explicit. This didn't feel right. It felt scary, and my intuition was screaming no. Even though BDSM doesn't freak me out, I told him I needed to close early. I followed him out and locked the door behind him, but not before he winked at me and was clearly getting off at my discomfort. I had such a strong feeling that I told one of the cops that comes in frequently who I'm close with. He looked into it and said that there was a warrant out for this guy because he was trafficking underage girls and violence against them, and he's involved in a missing persons case that is centered around an underage Hispanic girl. He hasn't been back, but as soon as I see him, or his incredibly weird and distinct van, I'm supposed to call 911 ASAP. Mr. BDSM brothel man, let's not meet again, even if you'll fill my panty pockets. Yes, tragically, that is a direct quote. I hope that the little girl is found safe soon. She's 13.